All right, welcome back to another episode of Talk to Tatiana. And today we are interviewing another entrepreneur, and we're asking Harold Newman of Newman Tax, about his journey in entrepreneurship. Harold, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me here. Yeah,
Awesome. So,
yeah, go ahead.
Harold, sure, please share like kind of where you started and why you started your own business.
Well, I was always, learned taxation, and basically in school is where it all started. In high school, believe it or not, I was one of the guys that fell asleep in the back of the accounting class, and somehow the teacher noticed that and started calling on me, and somehow I ended up having the right answers, which was kind of odd. But after so many periods after that, then the good old he told me to go in the detention room and gave me different type of curriculums. So, and he started doing with the taxes because he had his own practice, and I started doing taxes for him, so to speak. So it was kind of a weird way of doing things, and that's how it all started.
Cool. Cool. And so I know that you've shared this story with me before. And what I'm curious to know is kind of how, after you've started doing taxes, kind of how you're basically just go all in and or all out, and share um, how that journey progressed to where you are today.
Well, I started being in accounting as a bookkeeper, so to speak, during high school. And then I ended up getting into a CPA firm. So I was a junior accountant at the time. And at that time, all of a sudden, I had the company that I was working for, their controller suddenly had to leave position, and they gave me a test, and I became a controller at the age of 20. So when that happened, I started working there. I was working there for quite some time, and I was the guy that was getting, a 25-cent raise if I asked for it, so to speak. So after so many years, I asked him about another raise, and he basically said, "You're not worth it." And that kind of irritated me, so to speak, as you can tell. So I ended up telling him that, I gave him my 2 week notice. He flat out stated, quote unquote, "You will never make it on your own." And that's where I am today, so to speak, because that renaissance all the way through, and never look back. So,
Cool. Yeah. How dare he, right?
ironically, I don't know if it was reverse psychology or what, because he did know that I was doing taxes at the time because I enjoyed it, and I was helping a lot of people, including 80% of his family. In fact, probably about half of them are still my clients today. So, kind of ironic, but like I said, is that put me in the right direction, so to speak, and I wanted to, prove it to myself and prove it to him that I could do it. And ironically, we're still, unfortunately, he passed away, but up to that point, I'd go there every couple of years and say hi and how are you doing and everything else, and it's all good. So that it's kind of a weird story, but I just excelled after that.
Okay, cool. So, and then when this happened, when you gave you 2 weeks notice, what happened next?
Well, I got picked up by another firm for double what my wages were. But I told them I'm only going to be there for 2 years to fix their accounting problems. And then I went on 100% my own.
And so how long, like, has it been since you've been on your own?
Okay, I started part time when I was doing that. So that was in about 91. And then I went full time 93.
Okay, so you've
19.
been at it for about what, 24 years or so? Well, no, hold on. Yeah, 24 years, right?
Yes.
27, actually, 28.
Oh, now you're dating me. Yes, it's been a while, and I love what I do. That's the nice thing is it's not. It'd be different if you hated what you do, but I kind of love what I do, and I'm just focusing more and more, and I enjoy helping people, and that's why I'm here.
Cool. And so tell us about your firm today, what you do, what you specialize in, how many people work for you, and all those juicy details.
Okay. Well, the name is Newman Tax and Resolution Inc., and we specialize in complex tax issues, all the way from individual to corporate to fiduciary to you name it. And basically, we deal with anything that has to deal with tax. We do a lot of resolution. We're starting into a lot of litigation and audits for clients, and we really enjoy it. I'm now at 10 employees, and
Cool.
in fact, we're I have a couple interviews today actually for hopefully the 11th. So hopefully that goes through. We'll see what happens and go from there. But yeah, we're still expanding, and we're in a good niche over here in California, a nice area that, believe it or not, everybody owes and needs a tax person and someone that can help them when they get into those little problems, so to speak.
Cool. Cool. And so when you started your business for the first time on your own completely, um, was there anything that's really surprised you? Something that you didn't expect to be doing or to be handling or to be facing when you just started out?
Yeah, there was a lot of decision making at the beginning of time. There was a lot of different, what type of business it is and so forth of that nature. And the direction was a little hard back then. But now that was probably the hardest part is trying to deal with where to go and who to get help with because back in that time, this area was not too big, so to speak. Had to learn how to advertise and do everything on my own back then. So I think that would be one of the hardest things. Not necessarily the clientele just came because luckily I had a lot of I guess a lot of help from the prior experiences that I had, and a lot of people just came forth.
That's awesome. And so, for people who don't know, because I don't think that a lot of folks listening, especially, so this podcast is for people who are just potentially thinking about starting a business or started the business or maybe are early into it. Talk a little bit about the tax resolution. What does that imply? Because you and I know what it means, but really people listening generally don't. So, go in depth, please.
Oh, okay. Well, this pertains to I'm going to put quite a few different people in there. There's people that really need help. For example, if you get a divorce and you're the person that never does any of the tax returns or anything like that, and you sell a house, you think there's going to be tax issues. You forget to do your taxes due to an incident. Then all of a sudden, the IRS, gives you a love. I call them love letters, and then you're trying to hide under a rock. And so what I do is I go in, find out what the problem is in the tax situation, and then try to resolve it for the client. Try to minimize the tax. Believe it or not, most of them are something that can be fixed. You can either get into like an installment agreement, an offer in compromise. People that also have a lot of people say, "Well, I can do it myself," and do an audit on their own, especially when they're self-employed. um, that's the worst thing to do because then they get I call it the foot and mouth syndrome, so to speak, and they end up getting a worse. They end up hurting themselves. So I can actually go in and do audit recon, where I do audit reconsideration with the IRS. So there's a lot of different avenues to it. Even bankruptcy is one choice. It's a final choice, but a lot of people don't realize that can be, some taxes can be eliminated by bankruptcy.
Cool. So basically, you deal with all the problems, and I've certainly seen my share of clients that um, had some sort of a life event, and then they couldn't, they forgot to file, or they didn't have the time or the mindset, or whatever happened to handle it, and then it becomes a snowball by the time they get to it. So I've certainly seen that, and it certainly happens more often than we think. Do you agree?
Yes, in fact, I've done some research around here, and it seems about one out of every four people tend to have some sort of tax problem, believe it or not. So,
Wow.
and there's not a lot of people that know how to fix them. They'll go to certain people that most of them are afraid of the IRS. Well, they're just doing their job, so to speak. So we kind of have to talk their language to help people, so to speak.
You actually, I just came up with the title for this podcast episode, and I'm going to call it "We're Not Afraid of the IRS." What do you think?
There is. I mean, I hate to say it, but I love fighting the IRS. I wouldn't want to be on their side. I'm against their side, so to speak, because it's kind of like a government entity, and it's kind of one of those things. So that's in a way how I do it, because there's so many small people that actually get hurt more than the bigger guys when it comes to the tax issues.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. But I think that most people actually think that it's the opposite, right? Oh, I'm too small of a fish to for them to really worry about me.
Well, they can sink their teeth in more. That's the problem, is because they have all the power and the little guy doesn't. So therefore, they get in there that trap, and so they actually target more of the, I would say probably middle class to upper to low high end right there. That's the big ones. And then a lot of people don't realize, when you're self-employed, what do you try to do? Minimize how much you owe. So that is a big catch-all where the IRS loves to get, because everybody's trying to get that earned income credit and all that stuff, and those are trigger points. So
That's interesting. Cool. Good to know. I mean, I'm learning some stuff. Cool. This is great. So Harold, like as you've been in this business for for a long while. I mean, it's been quite a journey, right? I mean, can you talk about some of the things that were the kind of looking back you feel that you've done right, and then we'll go into looking back what you feel you've done wrong and you could have done better.
okay, well, that's a tough one. When doing things right, well, like I said, is helping somebody that owes $1.3 million into a settlement to where they can actually live again. I guess that would be an accomplishment that I'm pretty happy of. Some of that nature, you know, tough to do, and technically, in some instances, I think that's criminal. But luckily, they didn't go to that stage. So, and I've had lots of that. I mean, that was probably one of the biggest. But like I said, saving certain people, or another thing would be having somebody that, let's see, uh, lady a while back was about ready to go to jail, and she didn't realize she had to file a return because she sold a house. She really didn't owe
Wow,
anything, but they were saying that she owed $500,000. So it's kind of nice when you do something of that nature.
that's cool.
Yeah.
And
Things
then
I
most
regret.
okay.
um, I don't know. That would be probably not getting into it sooner. Because I did waste quite a bit of time as a controller. I was there for quite a few years, and working about the same hours that I was when I first started. Because when you first start as sole proprietor or something like that, people don't realize you have, in order to make it work, you put a little bit more hours in at the beginning to get it the right way you want it. So, I was working a lot of hours for someone else. I think that was, and I should have should have made the switch sooner. But at that time, I didn't know how, or what the outcome would be, so to speak. So I kind of held off. I have this nice, money coming in, so I'm going to stay there for a while, and that's what it was. So
That's cool. I mean, listen, I think that there is no right or wrong time to start on your own. It all comes as part of just life cycle or whatever. I don't think that, you made a decision and you wish you could have done it sooner, but there's nothing wrong with starting when you did and where you did. And so if someone was starting a business like today and listening to you, what would you kind of as a mentor through a podcast episode, what would you tell them? What would you share with them?
do some research ahead of time. Get everything in order. You know, Read a book. I mean, you have a great book that points out all the details there. I mean, and it's right on point. The thing is that is the best thing. Get all your everything in order, because if you know which direction you're going to go, it makes it so much easier, because then you have a solid path instead of so many, left and right turns. Now you can go forth, you can make sure that you have a plan, and that's the best, because I kind of back then kind of winged it a little bit, and it took a little longer to process, I guess would be the way to say it.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that's interesting. And so, in terms of, I guess, when you do build a business, when you did, and so if someone is doing something similar, not necessarily in the same industry, but in the same path, oh, I want to start on my own. Um, what do you think, kind of, people listening and just people in general should keep in mind when it comes to the balance of family and business?
You have to keep them equal. I mean, yes, you're going to work more hours during the week, but at the same time, make sure that you have time for the family, time for everything else. I mean, you have to have an equal balance. Otherwise, you're going to burn yourself out if you do too much. And at the same time, as then you can also have problems in the family, I'm sure. Luckily with what I do, everybody asks, you never see your family, but reality is I actually see them more than I do when I was working for someone else, because you can make your own hours in a sense. Mine are a little bit more standard now, but at the same time, as you could say, okay, well, we're going to go on vacation. You can make that arrangement. More quality time, and I think that's the best thing is make sure you have quality time and make sure you make efforts on both ends, because you don't, you always need to have the back end support in anything you do. Because if you don't have that, then why are you doing it?
I agree. That's a good question. It's a great question. And I was just thinking about to ask you something, but I can't. It slipped away, but it's okay. We'll find something else. As you, I was wondering, to in your current business, um, what is the biggest um, struggle you see with your clients? Then that could be both tax resolution clients and tax preparation clients, or anything in between. What's the biggest struggle that you see they go through in their businesses?
Procrastination is a big one. Everybody waits till the last minute, but the reason for that is because they don't have their bookkeeping in order. 90% of it is financials. Everybody knows what they do best, but then they figure, oh, well, that's simple. I can do that. And in reality, bookkeeping is an art. There is actually, you have to know what you're doing in order to do it correctly. And I think that's the biggest error that 90%, probably even more, of first starters do. They don't come up with a plan. They go straight out and do what they do best, and they forget about the book work.
Yeah, I agree. I think that that's the same. It's the same thing that I see, um, and I call it less of a procrastination, although that's certainly the word that fits. That's how we see it, and as accountants. But I think it also has to do with just not maybe fully committing to their business.
I don't know if it's that. They're committed at what they do, but the issue is they don't feel that the financial side is that part of the problem, so to speak. They feel that it's not that necessary. It's kind of like the bad part of the business. And a lot of people think it's very expensive too. That's the other issue. And reality is you pay for it now or you pay for it later. It's one of the two.
Absolutely, 100%. All right, as we kind of wrap up here, is there, actually, talk a little bit about your ideal client, whether it's tax resolution or someone who's listening, let's say if they find themselves in this situation that you will describe, to reach out to you and ask you for help.
Well, I deal with a lot of complex, like I said, very complex tax returns, multiple states. That'd probably be the ideal type of client, or a huge uh, somebody that has a lot of problems. I don't know why, but I'm a problem solver. I guess I loved playing, puzzles and stuff like that back when I was young. So it's a challenge for me, and I love challenges. So anything that has some sort of challenge, by means if it's an IRS, levy, lien, whatever, those a lot of people, have problems with those. A lot of people don't know how to get rid of them. Something like that would be ideal, and then there's always the offers where people are, down in this economy here right now. There's a lot of people that are really hurting, and I can help that type of person too. So I guess the ideal client would be, I don't want to say a difficult client, but a complex issue type of, complex tax or complex litigation or some to that extent.
Awesome. Awesome. Thanks so much. And thanks so much for being a great guest and sharing your journey with us today. And as you know, we wrap up, I want to mention that your links, your website, your Facebook page, your LinkedIn page notes will be in the show notes below this video if you're watching it on YouTube, and also in the show notes of the podcast. So be sure to check them out and connect to Harold. And Harold, again, thanks so much for being a guest and for sharing your time with us today.
Okay, thanks for having me.
Bye, everybody.